കുറച്ച് കോൺസെൻട്രേറ്റഡ് വൈൻ കാസയിൽ നിന്ന് ടേബിളിൽ എന്താ അൽത്താരയിൽ വീണുപോയി. അതിനുശേഷം കുർബാന കഴിഞ്ഞതിന് ശേഷം അന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഉച്ച വരെയുള്ള സമയത്ത് അദ്ദേഹം ഈ അൾത്താരയിൽ കയ്യും പിടിച്ച് മുട്ടുകുത്തി നിന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും കോൺസെക്രേറ്റഡ് വൈനോട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ബ്ലെസ്സഡ് സാക്രമെന്റിനോട് അദ്ദേഹത്തിനുണ്ടായിരുന്ന അഗാധമായിട്ടുള്ള റെവറൻസ് ആണ് ഇത് കാണിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് ഞാൻ വിചാരിക്കുകയാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ മാനുഷികമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് മൂലം കൈ തട്ടിയിട്ട് ഒരല്പം വൈൻ പോയതിന് പരിഹാരം അനുഷ്ഠിക്കുവാനായിട്ട് അദ്ദേഹം അവിടെ മുട്ടുകുത്തി നിന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയായിരുന്നു. ഇത്രയും വ്യക്തിപരമായിട്ട് വിശുദ്ധ ജീവിതം നയിച്ചിരുന്ന ഡൺസ്റ്റന്റെ ജീവിതത്തെ ആധാരമാക്കിയിട്ട് തിയോളജിക്കൽ ആൻഡ് കാർഡിനൽ വെർച്യൂസ് ഇൻ ദ ലൈഫ് ഓഫ് ഫാദർ ഡൺസ്റ്റൻ എന്ന പേപ്പർ അവതരിപ്പിക്കുവാനായിട്ട് ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട ചെറിയാൻ തുണ്ടുപറമ്പിൽ അച്ഛനെ ഞാൻ സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു.
Thank you very much, Father Ji. Dear Reverend Father, Provincials, Superiors, Fathers, Sisters, welcome to this small session. As already mentioned, hope you are hearing me now. You can hear me now. Please tell me if you are not able to hear me. I straight away begin to present the paper. This paper is designed into two parts. First part, we deal with the theological virtues in the life of Father Dunstan. And in the second part, if time allows, I would like to deal with declared sanctity and the measures used as criteria to verify the sanctity of a person. If asked the question, what is the vocation of each one of us? Naturally, the answer would be to one of the three conventional vocations that we speak about: to priestly life, to religious life, or to family life. Biblically, but the Christian fundamental vocation is to holiness or sanctity. In the book of Leviticus 19, chapter 2, the Israelites were called to be holy as Yahweh their Lord is or was holy. And the same invitation is seen in a different way in the New Testament. Matthew chapter 5:48, Jesus calls the new Israelites to be perfect as their heavenly Father is perfect. God calls the faithful to share in his holiness. And through baptism, every faithful has been given or has received the call to grow in sanctity. And therefore, those three vocations, conventionally we speak about, they are means to strive after perfection, that the fundamental call to holiness. We also see this in the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, and that is seen in the Catholic Catechism of the Catholic Church 1717 says, Beatitudes express the vocation of the faithful associated with the glory of his passion and resurrection. Beatitudes proclaim the blessings and rewards already secured, however dimly, for Christ's disciples. They have begun in the lives of Virgin Mary and all the saints. And number 1719 further says, the Beatitudes reveal the goal of human existence, that is the ultimate end of human acts. And this vocation is addressed to each individual personally, but also to the church as a whole. Therefore, another number, previously it says, what is the church if not the assembly of saints? And St. Paul also, we see in several of his letters, address the faithful or the people, calling them saints. I speak to saints, I come to see saints, or my disciples come to see the saints, etc. So the church, the assembly is a communion of saints. Okay, they are saints. Now, again, I would like to see the virtues, cardinal and theological virtues of Father Dunstan in the light of the church's teaching. And therefore, Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches a virtuous person. Okay, something is missing there. I will read it out from here. Okay, we'll deal with it later. A virtuous person maintains a habitual and firm disposition, not only simply to do the good, but giving the best of himself with all his sensory and spiritual powers. He tends to perform the good in concrete acts. Therefore, sanctity, the word sanctity and saint, sanctity, beatus, blessed, would mean hallowed, consecrated, holy, worthy of blessing, highly favored, etc. And there is also in the creed, we profess our belief, faith in the communion of the saints. And Catechism of the Catholic Church also says the same thing. The communion of the saints is the church. And this is addressed to all the persons, this vocation. Therefore, I conclude say, our vocation, fundamental vocation is to every person individually and to the church as a whole. And to beatify means to make supremely happy, endow with beatitudes and bliss. To declare, second meaning of that word would be to declare, to have attained the blessedness of heaven and authorize the title blessed and limited public cult or honor. At the beginning, there was not much difference between these two terms, beatus and sanctus, or blessed and saints, and therefore blessed was addressed to all in the sense of having beatific vision. The term saint coming from Sancho Sancire, that also would refer to make sacred, ordain, establish as sacred, pure and holy. Therefore, the saint means a person honored after death for virtue, piety, and martyrdom. And sanctity and this is okay. Benedict XIV says that perfection of human life can be achieved by anyone in any state of life by fulfilling the duties and obligations that his state of life obliges. True that all are having this possibility. See, all the persons, baptized ones, having this ontological possibility of becoming saints or growing in holiness and perfection, but very few only cultivate and nurture the natural and divine gifts and realize it, and thus rise above the level of common crowd and are distinguished by great and supernatural gifts. And they are, in a special sense, servants of God who, withdrawing themselves from all the created things, give themselves up wholly to lead the supernatural life and in a supernatural way. Therefore, what we say is that all do not have the same disposition and preparation to become or to achieve that perfection. Those who make right use of their freedom and cooperate with God realize the perfection to which all are called. And therefore, in declared saints as martyrs, confessors, heroic offer of life. We don't enter into that. It's only very briefly. Now, in the life, we see very briefly Father Dunstan's life in order to enter into. It is to pay tribute. Okay, that is, he desired from early childhood to become a saint, prayed for it as a teenager, and kept alive this desire, disposition, and prayer and effort throughout his life as a point of reference or departure. And therefore, before we delve deep into his virtuous life, let us see what sanctity is and who saints are. We have seen something. The first thing for anything to be acquired that we need is the desire and determination for the same. And Father Dunstan had it. The single goal he entertained throughout his life, that is the desire to become a saint, became the central point governing all his activities of daily life. Therefore, he cherished and practiced this desire. He believed and hoped. This is the key sentence, I would say, as far as this sentence is considered, perhaps from the point of view of the Cardinal theological virtue of hope. If I go to heaven, I will be able to feel all the fortunes. What more is required? I was satisfied in that. So I come to know about the person of Father Dunstan mainly through the books, publications. I have never had a direct formation under him. I think I have seen him, very faint memory I have, but then I don't have any contact with him personally. So only through the books and especially through the letters, his letters that I came to know about him. From this, I feel this is one of the key sentences that he had always in mind. And he innocently believed to become a saint means to live without sin and to do many virtuous acts. So with all his innocence doubted if the desire to become a saint would amount to sin of pride or not. So he tells therefore he asks his sister, and she empowers her telling. So when she asks, the response, not only there is nothing erroneous in desiring to become a saint, but also it is good, and that sister and the Saint Little Teresa desired for it, encouraged him, and from that day he began with confidence and good conscience to pray for it. So earlier he was doubtful whether it would amount to a sin of pride. That's with all his innocence, he thought. Then Dunstan loved God and fear of. First of all, he also acknowledges and confesses that at the beginning, it was more than love of God. It was fear of God that inspired him to love God. And later it becomes it. And then from his sister, he learned 2 or 3 motives why he wanted to become a religious, etc. This fact makes him sad. See, there is no saint so far in India. His sister narrated to him this, and therefore he was sad. And then he had that Swarajya Sneham, the love, patriotism, or so we can call it. That also influenced him to desire to become a saint, and that too the first saint of India. This thought motivated him, and by becoming a saint, he wanted to bear testimony to Christ and manifest God's glory to the whole of India this way. Then this desire strengthened him. He admits that by birth he was a coward and shy. This desire to become a saint gave him courage to face anything in life, to take up challenges and risks. And there was one incident, he says, when he was asked to serve at the altar, he had this shyness and fear, and therefore he did not want to. But then later he decides, if tomorrow I want to stand before that is my vocation, then I would do it, and God would give me the strength. Therefore, in that way, he could overcome his fear. Life in this, then again, advice to Coach Theresia. Life in this world is the preparation for the life in heaven. Let it be your only desire to become saint. So I am substantiating his own desire to become a saint that he tried to instill in the minds of others as well. And therefore he says that it should be your only desire. The prayer he suggested to her concludes like this: give me all the grace to become a saint. And that's why I told at the beginning, our vocation, we would say, to religious life, priestly life, family life. But then for Father Dunstan, it was first, his vocation was this one, to become a saint. And after that only he chooses religious life. At the age of 7, he decided to become a saint. From his sister, he learned that most of the saints are from the category of religious and very few from the diocesan priests, etc. And that is one motive why he wanted to become religious. And to work for the self, not only for the self-sanctification, also for the sanctification of the others. That also he will do. Then Father Dunstan is a man of with a different CMI in this sense, with a difference. He wanted to join a religious congregation in order to better realize the desire and decision to become a saint, and not to become a priest or religious at the first, but as a means, the best means or a shortcut to become a saint. He chooses religious life, as far as I understand. Many of us, at least I, did not perhaps have an ulterior motive than becoming a religious or a priest or indifferent. But he decided to join religious congregation after his decision to become a saint. And therefore, this desire to become a saint, perhaps his life revolved around this desire. Secondly, he was a genuine and authentic religious who wanted and tried to practice in the best way possible what he professed, and hence also the authenticity. He had the authenticity to criticize or to indicate the contradictions or any other unbecoming conduct or practices, indiscipline, etc., that existed in the congregation. Personal poverty, for example, it is not enough personal poverty, but communal witnessing of the poverty is also important. Now, cardinal virtues. As we say, charity begins at home. The desire to become a saint also begins at home. He had all the nurturing elements from his family. We've heard, just to be passed on very quickly, the respectful talks, spiritual readings, etc. at home, and the prayer of the parents as well as his elder sister. And having had a glance, we shall see just in the life of him the virtues. One of the criteria to measure a person's sanctity is to verify the virtuous life, that is, virtues he cherished and practiced in the light of the teachings of the church. Okay. Now, cardinal or theological virtues, what are they? In reference to Philippians 4:8 says, a virtue is a habitual and firm disposition to do the good, not only to perform good, but also to give the best for it, and with all sensory and spiritual powers he pursues. And the goal of virtue is to become like God. You see, again, his desire to become a saint, all these virtues, the elements we can see here. It's a habitual and firm disposition. And for him, the good was to become a saint. And for that, he habitually, he constantly kept on thinking about that disposition or bearing in mind. So human virtues, firm attitudes, stable dispositions, habitual perfections of intellect and will. And these govern our actions, order our passions, guide our conduct according to the reason and faith. It is not without, it's not a blind obedience or faith. It is supported by reason also. And Father Dunstan very clearly says he had two weaknesses, laziness and lack of punctuality. But at the same time, he says he has been given two graces, that is intellectual power and the inclination for virtues. So they make possible ease, self-mastery, and joy in leading a morally good life. Virtuous man is one who freely practices good. Okay, these are acquired by human effort. They dispose all the powers of the human being for communion with divine love. Okay, prudence. Prudence is the virtue that disposes practical reason to discern our true good in every circumstance and choose the right means to achieve it. Right reason in action, according to St. Thomas. Now, Father Dunstan's life, I just take a few incidents in his life and try to apply these the various elements of these virtues in his life. So, while admitting two drawbacks, laziness and lack of punctuality, he says two basic qualities he gave. That was intelligence and reasoning power regarding study, and strong desire to become a saint and inclination towards devotion as far as virtuous life is regarded. And the advice he gives to her sister influenced him to make prudent. His father gave an advice to his elder brother, that is, to evaluate every action of others, because each act may have good and bad effects. And Father Dunstan says that this advice, he profited from this advice much, and in various occasions he did that. While speaking about matters regarding newly recruited aspirants, he says, loving, compassionate, prudent attitude and perspective towards those candidates. Act like a prudent mother towards them, because when they come first, they will have several difficulties they will face, therefore that should be considered. There is at Ranji, when the aspirants complained about an incident of one servant. Can hear?
Yeah, last 5 minutes, Father. Last 5
Okay,
minutes.
thank you very much. So when the aspirants complained about servant disturbing them with by the disposition of the dust, letting it enter into their room, he says, the servant is not one in priestly formation. He may not be aware of our difficulties. If a strong wind comes, will not dust enter our rooms, and you will clean them, isn't it? In what he does, there isn't much dust. And I shall anyhow gradually tell Mr. Gupta and the owner. And so the prudent Father Dunstan waited for the opportune moment. He met Mr. Gupta, asked sorry, and solved the problem without also encouraging, bringing about harmonious coexistence, good relationship, reconciliation, etc. So thereby also he was teaching the aspirants, because later the aspirants also made some mistake, and then he was asking, now should I correct you or that poor man? So by that way, he was handling prudently that aspect. He says the secret of the Lord until this fulfilled. Okay, this we go. Now again, this is regarding prudence, therefore I don't take much time to do that. We go to justice. Justice is the moral virtue that consists in the constant and firm will to give their due to God and neighbor and respect the rights of others. So therefore, he was just, he tried to keep always the promises that he made to God, to the congregation, etc. And therefore, he could even, as I mentioned earlier, authentically even correct the congregation when and whatever needed. And then also could be considered as his detachment from the family. And Father Achandi also referred to that earlier. And Bishop Thunduparambil says, believe what is true, that is truth. Truth, according to him, is Jesus himself, Lord himself. Say what is believed, practice what is said, was according to Father Dunstan, conviction of justice. And Wilson Tharayil added to that, it says, do what you say, and justice will sprout from the recognition of truth. That means recognition of Jesus into one's own life. Justice requires to give each according to each one his due. While he was helping the sister himself, he says to her, I will not compel you until we know the will of God to enter any state of life. So there also he was practicing justice. And regarding justice, again, I stop here because time, last part. So I see one thing that, when for a work, cement was, there was shortage of cement, and somehow bribing or in an inappropriate way, the one in charge collected cement, and then when Father Dunstan came to know about it, he told the work, we do not want such kind of deal. And then person told work may have to be stopped. Then he says, if so, stop the work. The uncompleted construction work, impeded building will be the great testimony. If others ask reason for the obstacle or non-completion of the work, we can say also that. That also shows his justice, not any unjust practice he does not want to. Then fortitude. Maybe this may be the fortitude is one of the virtues through which he could overcome his fear, and in every difficult situation, he could again go further. Because he says, if God calls me and asks me to do certain thing, he also would give me the strength for that. And therefore, thus, with the virtue of fortitude, he could overcome that. I skip all this. And while dealing with Dunstan, he said there are sensual and intellectual fears. We should, then he says, whenever there is some fear or so, we should not simply with the soothing words, we should try to overcome or help others, but we should treat the cause, see the what is the cause of the fear and eradicate it in that way. So it was again the virtue of fortitude that helped him, I feel, helped him to detach himself as fully as possible from his family ties also. Okay. We go up to temperance. Again, it moderates the attraction of pleasures and provides balance in the use of created goods, builds mastery over instincts, keeps desires within the limits. Okay. So there are several instances to speak about it. Now we pass on to the theological virtues. 2 more minutes I can take, I think, now. See, theological virtues, they are related to the other human virtues. They dispose the Christians to live a relationship with the Holy Trinity. They have one and triune God for their origin, motive, and object. The theological virtues inform and give life to the other virtues we have seen. So they are infused by God, capable of acting as his children, and in order to merit the eternal life. And they are the pledge of the presence and action of the Holy Spirit in the faculties of the human being: faith, hope, and charity, the theological virtues. Now, faith, see, I would perhaps all the 3 virtues together, I would say, as far as Father Dunstan's life is concerned, to know God, to seek his will, and that was all for him, his theological virtues. Because to know the will of God, to search for, see, refrain from, we have seen, nurture hope and charity as well, in order to be a living member of the mystical body of Christ. Further, a believer should profess his faith with confident testimony, work for spreading it into the into ends. And in his desire to become the first saint of India, he wanted to show or manifest God's glory to the Indian people, and thereby he has also wanted to spread the Christian faith to all the Indians. And second, seeking the will of God is an expression of one's profound faith in God. The personal letters of any person are the best means to comprehend his personality and sanctity and to restructure his holy life. Okay. Also to sister, he had, see, once when regarding the will of God, he says, when he was asked to visit the sister before her entrance into the novitiate, he says, also sister had written expressing her wish to see the aunt before the entrance into the novitiate. If it is God's will, I desire to see all. But for the time being, since I do not think it is God's will, I do not make any effort. And, oh, sorry, here my PPT presentation is over, but still I'll continue without that. Then regarding hope also, you know, what I mentioned earlier, if I go to heaven, I will enjoy or feel all the fortunes. What are the fortunes? Those are the fortunes that were expressed in the Beatitudes. And therefore, Beatus means one who is having the beatific vision. So always he wanted to have that beatific vision, union with God and the beatific vision of God. And therefore, faith for him, he had a profound faith in God, and therefore always in various letters he wrote to, be it to the superiors, be it to her own sister, or be it to his cousin or nephew regarding the selling of a piece of land, etc. So always he mentions, if it is God's will. Again, when the superiors asked him to go to various mission centers, and at certain occasions he did not have he did not think that he is competent enough for that, but still he says, if it is God's will, stay and work, I will go. So always he sought him. And then he, as I mentioned, with the virtue of hope, that also was his desire to go to heaven. And with regard to charity also is an offshoot of the faith and other virtues. And therefore, the charity element is in, especially when he was dealing with the aspirants in the formation. Those children who are coming from home at the beginning, they will have a lot of difficulties. Minute details he narrates to the superiors and asks them to deal with them prudently and compassionately. And so I think time is up, and therefore I don't enter into the second part of the paper. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much, Father. വളരെ സമ്യക്കായിട്ട് ഡൺസ്റ്റന്റെ തിയോളജിക്കൽ ആൻഡ് കാർഡിനൽ വെർച്യൂസിനെ കുറിച്ച് കാനനിലോയുടെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ നമ്മളോട് പങ്കുവെച്ച ചെറിയാനച്ഛന് പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ട് നന്ദി.